Previous to the war on drugs and the Get Tough policies outlined in McCorkel's research, prison control practices for incarcerated women were weighted towards caring for the women and the rehabilitation of women, particularly mothers, with thoughts of the benefits to their children while the mothers were incarcerated. Prison control practices, when geared towards men, were focused primarily on control, with the ideology that men in prison are more aggressive than women and that there is little need to rehabilitate them with a focus on fatherhood. In fact, many of the women's crimes were excused as being heavily influenced by their male partners, with little discussion on the influence that women have over men in society, which is to say that our mothers, partners, sisters, and daughters are also excused from the effects of their influence on their male counterparts once a crime has been committed, and the influence of the men over women is considered only as a possible excuse of the women's crimes without any mention of the nurturing qualities a man can provide for his female counterparts, should he be inclined to provide this and be present in their lives. It is clear that crime in general is considered to be a male construction that only involves women when they become the focus of the male criminal activity, or when a man needs a partner who can get off more easily should they be caught. Many of the men in McCorkel's research made these suggestions, while the women had mixed discussions about the culpability of women as partners in crime. It is my opinion that this general attitude is based on society's belief that children need their mothers, and that the dedication of a mother to meeting their child's needs allows for the justification for some of the desperate acts which can lead to the incarceration of the mothers, such as stealing food or money, or acts of prostitution in order to support their child. Most of society, including men, would honor the sacrifice of a woman who is providing for her child, even if it led to her breaking the law. However, to some degree, this general attitude towards the caretakership role of the woman is being perverted in order to justify other criminal acts, such as drug use and drug distribution, which to some degree had led to the new justice approach outlined in McCorkel's research, Getting Tough on Women in the War on Drugs. The original rehabilitative outlook on the incarceration of women also ignores the male caretakership sacrifices that often are exactly the same as the women's. Men also steal and commit other criminal acts in order to support their children, and often do so with a far greater stigma attached to their irresponsible criminal behavior. Men who commit these same crimes are treated as if they made a personal decision to let down their children by leaving themselves at the mercy of the criminal justice system, and yet they are simultaneously regarded as deadbeat dads when they fail to provide for their children. With this perspective of the double standard and polarized gender motivations for committing crimes, women are seemingly regarded as victims of unfortunate life circumstances, while men are considered as the shapers of those circumstances, which calls to the forefront one of the oldest gender polarizations on record, that a woman is the victim of pregnancy and the man is the perpetrator of an act which defines a woman's existence subsequent, leaving him free to conduct business as usual, impregnating and manipulating women to suit his own ends. What we encounter when we allow bias such as this to cloud our judgment is a gender-influenced double standard for comparison of socially acceptable behaviors. The best qualities of female social behavior centralize on a hopeful belief that women are indeed natural caretakers and would theoretically be concerned with the environment in which the children are raised, have become the standard by which we recognize all women, even if they have committed a serious crime, so long as that crime does not involve a direct act of abuse or negligence in the caretakership of their children. Men are thusly judged by this double standard as being less prone to assuming caretakership responsibilities and therefore are considered to be less nurturing, which makes it less likely that if they were to commit a crime not directly involving the negligence or abuse of their own children, that any belief that they had acted in a criminal manner for the defense of their child's environment would be extremely difficult to communicate. While this may seem to be a one-sided problem, possibly giving women an advantage when facing criticism for criminal behavior not involving the abuse of their children, it is in fact a bias which harms both genders directly and indirectly through their relationship with each other. When women are faced with criticism for their behavior, they are often directly linked to the caretakership of their children, whether or not their actions in any way actually affect their children. As we read in McCorkel's novel, several of the women faced harsh criticism in the hot seat by the family for how the circumstances of their incarceration alone harmed their children's well-being, The degree that even risking extending their sentence by dropping out of the program was considered as evidence that they were bad mothers and did not deserve the love of their children or any hope that they would see them again. When men commit crimes that they may feel are justified as necessary to ensure the survival of their children, such as stealing, selling drugs, pimping, or even violence in the communities where the children are being raised, they are considered to be irresponsible based solely on the act, and almost no consideration is taken of whether they even have children before they are incarcerated. Subsequently, of course, the fact that they are separated from their children also becomes a burden that they must bear. When a child is separated from either parent due to the incarceration or any other number of reasons, the child also suffers. Whether or not it is true that women are biologically more inclined to the caretakership of the young, it is obvious that biologically it requires both men and women to produce a child, and the child is generally fully aware of this necessary partnership and experiences a void, regardless of which parent fails to engage their caretakership roles or why that parent fails to do so. Race informs prison control practices in such a way as to reinforce stereotypes about how race is a factor in criminal behavior in general. Black young adult men and other men of color are an increasing population in prisons, and prison control policy is guided by the population increase. The policy has become more controlling and less rehabilitative, according to McCorkel's research, although this research is largely focused on women and centered on the activities of a drug treatment program in a women's prison. Women of color comprise a larger portion of the population she is involved in researching, which draws a correlation between the treatment of these women and their race, which is to say the absence of a larger population of white women could be a correlating factor to conditions of ridicule and abuse that reported in the research. As McCorkel stated in her research, many middle-class white women have access to treatment programs that can be used as bargaining points in court should they be facing jail time for a drug crime, while the women in the prison drug treatment program are primarily from situations of poverty in urban regions, which by observations of demographic data are overwhelmingly communities of color. This shows us that the prison system is informed by a situation of unequal distribution of resources over all racial groups in the community at large, for anyone who is even arrested for a drug crime and remanded to the types of treatment programs in prison as described in McCorkel's research.